All right, let's talk about the wide receivers, the guys at the top of our rankings. Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, again playing on Saturday, and then Julio Jones going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pete, who are you relatively high on?
Yeah, you just talked about Julio Jones. Really encouraging week last week with Calvin Ridley obviously out, and this Jacksonville team has just been atrocious. So I didn't mention Devante Freeman either. I think basically all the Falcons are really, really strong plays. This Jacksonville team has just been so bad. And now, I don't know if you guys saw that story that came out there, how they were requiring people to do all their medical stuff with the team, and that was against the CBA rules. And there's just a million red flags with this Jacksonville team. So I'm high on all the Falcons, and I think Julio sets up extremely well. Obviously, his price tag came up after a really big game, but a really encouraging just spot for him last week, specifically the 20 targets. I mean, that is vintage Julio Jones, and I think Atlanta will do their best to get him involved again as well. Obviously, I have Michael Thomas. He's really expensive, but I think he's fine. The one guy I am willing to invest in the Chargers offense is Keenan Allen. I think he's, really at a nice price tag and saw 10 targets, caught 9 balls for 99 yards. So on DraftKings, he goes for 18.9 points, but was so close to just a really, really big game. If I'm going cheaper, I like Mike Williams as well. And then someone that I'm targeting that I think might be a slight pay up to be contrarian spot on DraftKings is Terry McLaurin against the Giants. Obviously, the Giants have been tanking and releasing guys, and McLaurin has as much upside as any player. He's probably top 10 upside receiver in the NFL right now for me. So he's someone I'm also targeting in tournaments.
Sean, what about you?
Last week I was high on Cortland Sutton this time last week, but once I saw how much snow there was going to be, I backed off a bit. But he still managed to put up a pretty solid game, 4 catches, 79 yards in the snow. This week he's at home against the Lions at 6,200. They've been torched by number one wide receivers lately, so I'm going to have a ton of him. He's my wide receiver 10 to start the week, and he's only the 12th most expensive wideout on the main slate, and there's a ton of wide receivers not on the main slate, so he's pretty cheap there. I think we could see a ceiling game from him this week. And the other just GPP dart throw I'm going to make is John Ross at Miami at 4,200. My medium projections for him are pretty low right now. 3 catches for 40 yards. He's not a recommended season-long start or anything, but he's great for GPPs. We saw him ease back in 2 weeks ago at 38% of routes run, and last week it was up to 58. So if he could get anywhere near the 80% we saw before he was placed on the IR, he has massive potential in this matchup at Miami. So I'll have a few flyers on him at 4,200.
Yeah, it's a great call. Sorry to interject. I just wanted to talk because I was actually going to ask you guys about John Ross. I saw the routes run went up, but the snap count went down. Any concerns with that, Sean? I know that obviously they ran the ball effectively, but I was a little concerned to see the snaps come down. Maybe once they're out of the game, he wasn't on the field as much. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll have to see. I'll have to look into that if he played less later in the game. But I'm assuming they just have him in passing situations which is all we care about. We don't need him run blocking or anything. So maybe they're just saving him for passing plays, which is even better. But like I said, he was running 80% of routes early in the season. So you have to figure it's just going to keep trending up to close out the season.
Yeah, I love that call. Fastest guy in the field, massive upside.
Yeah, totally agree there with John Ross. Rayvon, who do you like this week?
I think there's only one answer to this question, and that's Devante Parker. It's every week with this guy. The 1 week he didn't put up double-digit DraftKings points, he got hurt. He's done it every week since week number 4. He's gotten the double digits. He's had upside ceiling games. He's had multiple touchdown games. He has double-digit targets in 4 of his last 6 games. Really 4 of his last 5 if you take out the one he got hurt in. It's been every week since Preston Williams went out, especially that Parker his target share has been, let's see. So it's been 25% or it's been 22% or more in every week except the one he got hit, the one he got taken out by until last week. So 4 of the last 6, he's over 20% and 22%. And yeah, double-digit DraftKings points every week. Bengals defense, Ryan Fitzpatrick, highly correlated with Parker because that's the guy he's throwing downfield air yards to. A lot of the other guys, Albert Wilson, more of a underneath gadget guy. Laird, they throw their running backs a lot. So love Parker this week for another smash.
Is there any coincidence that 3 Adam Gase alumni are tearing up right now? Ryan Tannehill, Devante Parker, and Kenyon Drake, and Le'Veon Bell sucks. I don't know.
Man,
that was a great tweet by Levitan out there that went viral just about those exact guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that was. I agree with you 100%, Sean. Great minds think alike.
Yeah, no kidding. Credit to Levitan. I didn't see that, but good call, Levitan.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's funny. You guys both brought it up. It's great.
All right, one guy I'm relatively high on is Julian Edelman. I know he's dealing with injuries and coming off a bad performance last week, but in the post-Josh Gordon era, he's just been getting a ton of targets, been a top 5 wide receiver, and most importantly this week, he avoids Tre'Davious White, who rarely goes into the slot. So I think it's still a good situation for Edelman, and I'm looking for him to bounce back. Pete, who are you relatively low on?
Yeah, going back to the Dallas guys, I think I like Gallup the most. And Amari is certainly an interesting price tag, but the splits for Dak and Amari at home is massive. So going on the road here, I hate to speak badly about my boy Amari, but I think he's probably a fade for me. I think there's some other spots here just in general. We'll see how the markets move, but, I love the Cortland Sutton call. I was really disappointed to see Kenny Golladay have a bad game last week. Be curious to see how Chris Harris plays in that game. So Golladay is someone I'm normally really high on. I might be a little bit lower than market right now on him. And then one guy I want to get your guys' opinion on that is really interesting to project for me right now is A.J. Brown, who is getting really, really expensive. And after the performance by the Saints, I'm a little nervous about him. I played him a ton last week, which was great, but this week he might be a fade for me. Those are 3 players that are really talented that I normally like to play. Am I crazy on any one of those guys?
Sean, 1, what are your thoughts on A.J. Brown? And then 2, because Pete is off of Amari, is this the week that he goes off for $1 million?
Right. I mean, the Eagles are a pass funnel defense, but, I consider Pete the Amari truther, so I'll just fade along with him. But, yeah, I agree with the A.J. Brown call as well. He's 7K now, so he's up there. And, like we saw last night, the Saints defense is for real. I mean, it's tough, but I'm sure A.J. Brown would be over-owned at 7K. And there's plenty of guys just under 7K that I like more this week. So he's a pretty easy fade for me this week, even though he does look like the real deal. I mean, next year he could be wide receiver 1 heading into draft. So love the talent, but this matchup, I'll be fading him as well.
All right, Sean, who are you relatively low on?
I'm pretty low on, I wouldn't say low on, but Tyler Lockett at 7,600 at home against the Cardinals. I mean, it's a great matchup. He's coming off a massive game. But, he's a high variance player where we kind of expect these spike games. And looking back to last year, he's had 3 games over 20 DK points, and he's averaged almost 6 points less than his average the next game. So he's just a guy where you just want to sell high. There's better guys, like I said, in the sub 7K range. Like I rather have a DJ Moore, Devante Parker, Cortland Sutton, those types of players. So I won't be spending up to get Tyler Lockett's regression game. I think he'll be pretty highly on this week because of the matchup. And last week he just tore it up. So he's a sell high guy for me this week. Way too expensive, 7,600.
Raybon, what about you?
Yeah, I think so. Wait, hold on. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, well, first of all, I think A.J. Brown definitely is a fade. Marshawn Lattimore. We've seen some of these shadow matchups just turn out really poorly lately. Amari with Jalen Ramsey last week. With Jalen Ramsey last week and Marshawn, T.Y. Hilton, Marshawn Lattimore. They said Hilton was healthy, and I think part of the reason he struggled was just, getting caught up. So do not like those guys. Odell Beckham is another guy. Really, all of the Browns wide receivers going up against the Ravens. Ravens have 3 really good cornerbacks in Jimmy Smith, Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters now. So this could be a game where we see a ton of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb getting a little more involved in the passing game. His targets have been going down lately, but this Baltimore team can cover. So I don't really want any part of any of the Browns' offense in this one.
All right, one guy I am looking to stay away from off of the main slate, Brashad Perryman. It's maybe like talking out of the other side of my mouth, and that I say I really like Jameis Winston this week, but Brashad Perryman, have to admit, great matchup, great offense, but an inconsistent producer for the past half decade, and especially on a shorter slate for the Saturday games. I'm imagining he will have a lot of ownership, so he would be someone I might be looking to stay away from. Sean, give us the wide receiver prop.
So I was taking some notes when Pete mentioned him earlier. He likes him, but Terry McLaurin, receiving yards at home against the Giants. He's always a tricky guy to project because, Haskins has been so brutal. But Haskins, he broke out last game. He looked pretty good. So I'm trying not to get too high on McLaurin, but I have him at 59.5 receiving yards. So where do you guys stand on that?
Pound the over. Absolutely pound the over. And he is his mean's going to be higher than his median. So in a lot of ways, I should be taking the under. But I was more impressed with Haskins. I think this is a really, really good matchup. And McLaurin is just so talented.
Yeah.
I mean, he really just needs one catch to bust that. But that's probably a really donkey take, and why I've dusted it off with Sean's props in general. That's a classic mean versus median thing. I think his mean's much higher, but his median is probably is lower. So I'll be a fish and go over just to love him as a tournament play this week, but good number.
Yeah, I have him a little over. I have him at 66. And when you look at the Redskins, they really, Trey Quinn and Paul Richardson are out for the year. They don't really have a tight end that catches passes because Jeremy Sprinkle, he gets like 2 targets a game. And now you have Adrian Peterson, as you mentioned, Sean, running a lot of the pass routes, and he's not a guy that I think is going to like command an above average target share. So you have this situation where targets kind of just get funneled to McLaurin. And I believe he entered last week leading the league in air yards. I got to check if he still does, but like Pete said, all he needs is one catch. When you lead the league in air yards, you have about 40%. And the Giants, they don't have Janoris Jenkins anymore, so they don't really have anyone that could cover him.
Yeah, Raybon, I am right there with you exactly. I have him for 66.2 yards. And I mean, the thing is, so yeah, they cut Janoris Jenkins, but it's not like he was playing all that well this season anyway. And I mean, the 3 cornerbacks that they have left, DeAndre Baker, a rookie who is just getting flamed, Sam Bill, a second-year supplemental draft pick who got no action last year and has been really inconsistent this year, and then Corey Ballantyne playing in the slot as a fill-in who's just been flamed repeatedly. This is the worst secondary, or at least the worst trio of cornerbacks in the league right now, and that's including the travesty that is trotted out in Miami every week. Like these guys somehow are worse than what Miami is doing. So I definitely like the matchup for Terry McLaurin.
Let's get real quickly just on that. I was just looking at his game log. So 6 out of 14 times he's gone over that number. One, he was just right short, but he's at 833 yards in 14 games. So it's this is like the epitome of the mean versus median. He's averaging 59, 60 yards a game, but his median outcome has actually been worse. So really sharp line, Sean, and those of you betting props and thinking about this stuff, it's really important to distinguish those two things.
Yeah, last night I did my player prop was Ted Ginn under 29.5 yards, and I go in depth on exactly what you said. The median projection room was like 31, and the median I simmed it out was like 25. So yeah, hopefully we can do more pieces on that going forward. But great point. The mean versus median is definitely in play with a guy like McLaurin.